Bonjour, film lovers! Did you know that you can subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, and Stitcher Radio? We also have a website, realnerdspodcast.com, where you can find cool articles and other ways to listen to the podcast. You can also follow us on social, Facebook at Real Nerds Podcast, and Twitter and Instagram at Real Nerds. You can also call us at 720-6nerds5. We will listen to it, we will play it, and we will probably commentate on it. Also, email us at realnerds@gmail.com. Anyway, enjoy the episode.
Welcome to the Real Nerds Podcast, unofficially the official podcast of some kind of convention. I don't know what the hell's going on anymore. The whole world fucking changed. Every week, the Real Nerds go and see a new movie, and we podcast our experience to the world. This week, we saw Candyman. Oh, wait, I only said it 3 times. I don't have to worry about it anymore. But I'm not alone in this endeavor. My name is Zach, but as always, I am joined by...
Brad.
And
Corinne.
Yes, that's right. Ryan Frost is on assignment today. The assignment of parenthood. Dun, dun, dun.
So the assignment is taking care of his kid.
Yes. Oh, what? Well, is it that, or is he secretly watching the Blacklist and not telling us? You know, just a big.
Ryan gave me and you and I, Zach, like such shit last week because we were on. So I feel like this week we have to give him shit because he's not on. And, you know, there is no better way to give Ryan shit than bringing up the Blacklist.
It is his birthday yesterday, Corinne. We have to be nice.
It was yesterday. No, I was nice to him yesterday. I sent him a bunch of Spider-Man memes. But today, all bets are off. Plus, by the time this comes out, it will be like several days removed from his birthday. So he doesn't get a birthday week.
Why'd you send him Fireman memes? You know that's not what
No. Spider-Man memes.
Yeah, Spider-Man memes. Yeah,
I was also looking up firemen this week, but for a completely different and completely legitimate reason that Brad will hopefully explain.
Yeah, I'm sure he will for sure. As far as giving Ryan shit, let's you know what? Since I'm hosting the show, we're based out of kindness this week and not vitriol and anger and anything like that. So I'll just say, Ryan, you're kind of crazy being so in love with Cary Grant. You know that Jack Benny is 10 times more handsome, my friend. You just know it. I know it. We're just going to have to live with that fact. But that's the meanest I'll get. Happy birthday, buddy. He will be calling in his review of Candyman. But in the meantime, while we prepare to talk about the latest reboot via Jordan Peele and Nia DaCosta, we will be digging into movie news, what we've been watching. We'll talk about something that occurred this weekend involving our 2 co-hosts here. And we'll also talk about what's been going on around town. Which, Brad, do you know what's going on around town?
Hey, film buddies, follow me around Denver.
I do. The drive-in is showing Candyman, Old and Don't Breathe 2, 27th through September 2nd. So check that out. I'm sure they've been repeating weeks, so I'm sure it'll transfer again to after the 2nd. So, and the Twin hasn't given a schedule yet, so probably similar stuff, I'm guessing. And that's what's going on around town.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Brad. And once again, please be sure to visit the Dairy Arts Center for Friday Night Weird. Look at the Dairy Arts Center calendar for their upcoming events regarding the Friday Night Weird program hosted by Jack Hanley and Shay Westcott. Brad, let's not beat around the bush any further. You embarked on your how many 48 hours is this now?
This was the 12th Denver one and the 14th weekend like this one.
Yeah, because there's the 2 additional ones that you can do, like the bonus ones.
Yeah, which So we got superhero as our genre this year, and all weekend I felt like we'd done it before, but no one, could confirm that. And then this morning, as I was working, I was like, wait a minute, Battle Rap Galactica was a superhero genre one. So, because that wasn't a Denver one, it was the 4 points. So that's why I had forgotten. So, we've done superhero genre before.
Is Battle Rap Galactica, though, in the 48-hour scheme, is it kind of like the never say never again to the rest of the James Bond series, where it's on the outliers, it's on the outs, like technically it counts, but it doesn't because it doesn't?
Oh, it absolutely counts.
Okay, fair enough. So it is part of the 48-hour canon. But yeah, no, you participated in yet another 48-hour production. Why don't you give the Real Nerds listeners an inside scoop into your latest production?
Yeah, wow. It's my mind. I got some sleep, but I'm still a bit frazzled because there's just so much to do the day after still. But you guys were there.
Yes, we
you
were.
helped out. Zach graciously was our assembly editor, and Corinne, PA'd, production assistant, just did whatever we needed when it was called for, and
excuse me, I will brag. I also held up a pole as a human sandbag. Thank you very much.
That's right. Zach did fill in for part of the green screen.
Yeah, because we were doing it on outside of Mike Henderson's garage in the driveway, and oh my god, like you don't want to spoil anything that happens in that shot, but. I will say that we can definitely debunk any rumors out there that Thunderbolt 3 is not the film that you made, unfortunately.
It was discussed, but we didn't end up doing it. We got superhero genre or road movie, and for a good chunk of the writing session, we were writing a road movie, and then at some point it switched to superhero. And we worked pretty quickly. We kind of got a late start on Saturday because it was tough to get props ahead of time with stores kind of opening later than usual. Mm-hmm. And we thanks to Zach, we got the edit started really quickly. And then on Sunday, we had to go do some pickup shots for things that we didn't get done on Saturday. And those took up a huge chunk of time. So it got really sketchy in the last 4 or 5 hours of what could we conceivably finish, and we ended up turning it in 5 minutes before it was due. And it was a really tense hour watching, wondering if that was gonna turn out or not. Watching the progress bar on the exporter tell you it's going to take 20 minutes and it feeling like 45.
I just remember the conversation going in was just like, yeah, if, like with everything that we're getting done right now, hopefully we're going to be, because we don't have to be there in person to hand deliver, we're going to be uploading. We'll be uploading super quick. We won't have to have any worry or anxiety about it. And yet every year it's down to the wire for you, my friend, which I'm always kind of shocked by.
It's frustrating. And after 12 times, it's clearly that link in that chain that trips us up is me, because our post crew is often very light. And if I wasn't, like I said before, we had to go do pickup shots, and that means our editor and our graphic designer is now suddenly photographer again. And that's just time that could be split between other people, and it needs to stop happening.
Well, I think what it does mean is I definitely need to come on board next year just to at least either offer an additional hand, or at least put on a beanie and pretend to be Burgess Meredith to your Rocky, and just give you encouragement / smack you around a little bit.
Yeah, but realistically, it needs to be either Brad directs and shoots and doesn't edit or doesn't do post, or someone else directs and shoots and Brad does the post. So it can't be both anymore.
Wait, Brad. Don't you dare announce your retirement from filmmaking. We've already lost Ethan Cohen. I'm not losing you.
Not retiring, just doing less. So it's the 12th time, Zach. It's clearly it doesn't work. But the finished film, we screened it after we turned it in. We turned it in not knowing what it looked like. Like it just went off to Mike to get the sound added, and then it went up. So we watched it, and it's one of the few times where I was like, there will be a director's cut, but there's very little to do with it. So When we screen it on Wednesday, I'll be proud of what's showing there. There's nothing that I'm cringing too much at.
Lovely. And can you at least give us the title and you already said superhero genre. Give us the title, and if you want to give us a little tease, give us a little tease.
The title is The Very Generic Justice Team, and it is a homage to superheroes, dysfunctional superheroes, who are in their own bit of trouble for the reckless heroism that they've caused.
It's given the overdominance of the superhero genre in certain respects. It is nice to watch any time a filmmaker will take to accountability the actual logistics as opposed to the fanboy logistics. So I appreciated the looking through the assembly edit and seeing what the project entailed and reading the script and then sifting through the footage. And I've liked Ryan before in the films in the past, but I think apart from Mayor Knob, this might be my favorite thing he's done for you.
Well, you haven't seen the graphics yet, so it gets crazier.
Oh, good.
If you thought his character Wildcard was wild, just sitting at a table and talking, wait till you see the rest of it.
Oh, it's not like, I mean, granted, yes, it's dialogue, but like it really is like, it's just his attitude. And also, I don't want to spoil too much of it, but what I was laughing at by the end of my assembly edit session. There was a certain image of him that during one of the commercial elements of this project. So that image made me laugh my butt off way too much. But yeah, so we're going to be looking for it. But this episode won't be ready by the time that this happens, but there will be the screening at the Bug Theater tomorrow night at 6 p.m.
For groups A and B. C and D will be Wednesday night at 6 and 9. And technically it's 7 and 10 because there's like a pre-show, like red carpet extravaganza. So really the actual movies don't start playing until an hour into the event. So we are 9 o'clock on Wednesday. So I think it'll just be us. No one's coming to that.
Wonderful.
That wasn't involved.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll be there. I'll get my ballyhoo edit done early. I did promise a friend to go tomorrow too, and I'm going to do my best to try to make it over. But if not, I'm definitely coming to yours because I'd love to see what the final product ends up being. So
yeah, do yourself a favor and just show up at 10 for each of those later blocks because so you'll only feel like you were there an hour.
For sure. Then I'll just get all the other stuff done. And to be clear, I would love to go to each and every event, but I'm unfortunately inundated with everything, so I've got to balance it out. But Brad's been patient with me not attending these as of late, so I'm gonna do my best.
Yeah, the other guy's your first choice. Screw you, dude. You were on this one.
I know I was. Technically I can stand with pride, and
your name's on the poster, man.
It is on the it is under editor.
Both of you.
I'm excited. I don't think I've made a 48-hour poster yet for Brad. That's awesome. Ooh, I'm excited now. All right. But Corinne, I know you're eating, but while you're eating, can I just go ahead and generally assume what you did on this production? I assumed it had to do mostly with talking about anime to the crew members while they were hard at work making this movie.
No, I was running the slate actually.
That's true. You were first AC technically, if I'm getting my terminology correctly, Mr. Brad.
I have no idea.
Yeah, on my side it's slate.
Okay. But no, Corinne, yeah, you were running slate. I heard you, and it was actually like very prompt delivery. You were no nonsense. I loved it.
Well, thank you. I had never done it before, but it's always kind of fun to, when you see like behind the scenes documentaries or whatever of the movie making, it's like scene 1, take 1, action, and whatever. And you're like, oh, now I get to be in it. And that was pretty cool. And also it just helped out with carrying things around, moving things on in the, the places where we were filming, and just, generally helping out with whatever needed to be done. And I was telling my mom last night as I was driving home that I was like, yeah, guess what, Mom? My hand's going to be in the movie, because there was a shot where Brad's like, just keep like hitting this thing, and whoever's got a free hand, just do it. And so I was like, I have a free hand, so I just kept hitting this thing. So won't say what it is, because y'all have to go see the movie. Well, I mean, you two don't, but you at home need to see the movie.
Hey, Corinne?
You hear that, Brad? We don't have to watch it.
Yeah. Bad news. We reshot those shots because
oh really?
Oh no!
They ended up blown out. So yeah.
I honestly can't tell if you're shitting with me or if you're being legit.
I'm being honest, and I don't want to misrepresent you. I don't want you to show up on Wednesday and be like, "Oh, where'd it go?" I'll tell you right now. It's nothing you did. It's my bad camera work screwed that over. So.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
My Hollywood debut fell before it could even rise.
Now stop.
Your name is still in the credits.
Thanks.
Yes. Corinne, now stop it, because we're going to give you praise here, because for every important job that gets an EPK interview or a podcast interview, there's always the production assistants and the grips and the people on the crew who are the actual badasses and heroes of the shoots, because they are the ones who are making sure it actually functions, so that a director can pace around going like, it's not perfect enough.
Like, it definitely gave me a major respect for, well, just like everybody who works in the film industry in general, but really for actors, because they really have to like get into character and do these like, dozens of takes potentially. And there's like hundreds of people standing around, on the big productions. So it's like, yeah, how do you stay in character when there's literally like 50 people all standing there just waiting for you to do your thing? And they're like holding stuff and staring at you. It's like, I'm intimidated, and I wasn't even an actor.
Yeah, actors also get the hard end of the stick. I guess what I'm saying is that the director is an overrated position in the project. Sorry, Brad.
Well, I think it just,
you were
just
the cameraman,
like
though.
to paraphrase another saying, behind every good director is like a dozen or thousands of like really hardworking other people on the set. So
absolutely, that's
like,
a wonderful way to put it.
Do you think Steven Spielberg or whoever would be where they are if they hadn't had, those PAs or grips or editors or whoever? I mean, we all know that the editor actually saves Star Wars as we know it.
But we don't talk about that, because I'm not married to her anymore. We don't talk about that anymore, Corinne.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. By the way, James, I know you moved away and you didn't get a chance to see my basement before you moved away, and it really hurts me. It really hurts me, George Lucas. Yes. No. Yeah. No. You're right, Corinne. Like the behind every good director is a good crew, and Brad clearly has the best crews, because he's usually the one who assembles the most eclectic and lovable group that has ever been assembled in Denver history. So congratulations
again,
blast.
Buddy. Yeah, what? I had a blast at not only at the filming, but the wrap party was a lot of fun too. So yeah, it just seemed like a really good group of talented people who seemed to work well together and just kind of had like a really good vision. And I think Brad was a big reason for that, but everybody else did a great job. So I'm very excited to see the film on Wednesday.
Yeah, it'll be wonderful. And congratulations again, buddy, for another hard job that has been executed again with your elegance and grace and charm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for being a part of it, guys.
Yeah, not a problem. I wish I could have been a part of it more, but I got, and I wish I could have been at the wrap party, but I spent 5 hours talking about the Marx Brothers for value. So by the time I looked at the clock, and I'm like, they're probably done for the night, aren't they? They've got to be sleepy. And then I kept getting texts into like 11 o'clock at night in the group chat going like, I guess I should have just gone. But yeah, wonderful, guys. Thank you so much for Brad for having me aboard the project again. I really appreciate you trusting me with assembling that footage. So
yeah, super helpful.
Yep. On that note, we don't just talk about the news about Brad's films. We talk about the news of other films in a segment that is normally called Real News. But today it is called News on the March. It's real news. Because I'm going to throw Citizen Kane references in here if I'm hosting. Anyway, there's not a whole lot, but there are some big things. I was not on last week. Did you guys talk about the fact that Marilyn Eastman died?
Nope.
Marilyn Eastman was one of the actresses and main financiers of Night of the Living Dead. She plays Helen Cooper, the poor woman whose daughter is bitten by a zombie, and she is fighting with her husband in the basement about whether it's okay to whether they should stay in the basement or be upstairs. There's a legend within that. Like that's a key part of a legacy of a legendary movie. That it's a shame that she doesn't look like she did much more from what I can see, but it's to be able to help be one of the producers of one of the most influential horror films in film history, that's something you can walk away to your grave, knowing that you did a job well done at the age of 87. So big bucket.
Related?
No. There's a lot of Eastmans out there. Some of them are rich and they don't know me, and I don't want to know them because they're snooty. No, but Marilyn Eastman wasn't. Marilyn Eastman was a legend in horror film, and she will be missed.
You are related, but they just keep you ostracized from the family.
What's the point? What am I going to do that's going to be so embarrassing to the family, Brad?
You talk about the Marx Brothers too much.
Well, I talk about Jack Benny too much. I don't talk about the Marx Brothers enough, Corinne. But on Ballyhoo, you will be able to hear a 5-hour chat coming in November with me and special guest Tyler Maybe from Pop Culture Brews. That's right. I'm also going to plug my own shit because why the hell not?
Ed Asner also died.
Yes. Well, yeah. That was. Thanks for. Thanks for spoiling.
Spoilers.
the move into this week's big death. Yes, Ed Asner from Mary Tyler Moore Show and actor in a plethora of film has passed away at the age of 91. A acting legend. Corinne and Brad. Corinne, you sound like you had to say something.
Oh, I was just saying he's in Up. He plays Carl, the main character.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he did a lot of other voice work. He was in Gargoyles. He was J. Jonah Jameson in Spider-Man the Animated Series. But I know him best as Carl from Up. So
that was one of my first exposures apart from Mary Tyler Moore, but also Alfred Hitchcock Presents, The Untouchables, The Outer Limits, Gunsmoke, The Fugitive. He started in 1957. This guy has worked the gamut since the early days of television. He did not mess around. But Brad, you're a Mary Tyler Moore fan. How does this make you feel?
Yeah, sad. I usually, with celebrity deaths, I'm like, it's tragic, but I didn't know them. So, what commentary can I have on them? But I did kind of feel like, it was amazing that he lived this long. And he was just an amazing talent on that show. It's too bad he didn't get more starring stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, he was on Gargoyles. He was living the dream.
He did get to live lunch. He found a way to keep consistently working. So, there's no shame in that. That to have those stumbles when you are a working actor and you are one of those workaday actors and workhorse actors as Ed Asner was, every job is a blessing and you give everything of yourself into those jobs. So at 91, he will be absolutely missed. Take care, Lou Grant.
At some point, I got to watch his spin-off series, Lou Grant.
What?
At some point, I got to watch his spin-off series of Lou Grant.
I've never seen it either.
Mary Tyler Moore spawned 4 spin-offs. One of them being that, Phyllis and Rhoda.
Didn't we just lose somebody else from the Mary Tyler Moore Show?
The Gavin McLeod, I think, a couple months ago.
Yeah, I callously forgot him on this show. It was my bad.
And then obviously Mary Tyler Moore, I think 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Betty White is the last person standing. Oh wait, no. Cloris Leachman.
Cloris Leachman died too.
Recent. Yeah.
Cloris Leachman passed away. Yeah. That one was more personal to me because of Frau Blucher. But yeah, so long, Ed. Thank you for all the memories. Last honest thing really I have, Brad, unless something happened that you're aware of. We got a pretty good extensive look at Clerks 3. Where they're meticulously recreating shots from the original. So, yeah, I mean, did you get the chance to see the stills yet?
I haven't reconnected with Society at all pretty much since, Friday. So, I've heard things, but I haven't looked at anything.
Yeah, no, the picture that has been sent shows the monitor with Brian O'Halloran and Jeff Anderson in a similar pose that they were back in 1994 for the original Clerks.
I did see that.
Yeah, so it's a lovely image. And there's other people attached that are just throwing photos out on the internet. So we're getting a good look at what this is going to be. Trevor Furman's the one where it's just he aged so much that I'm just like it's not that he looks bad. I'm just like, dang, he just looks so different from. What is it now? Is it 14 years since Clerks 2? 15?
2006.
Yeah. So 15 years. Fuck.
I think the original Clerks was only 10 between 1 and 2. So
yeah. Well, no, 12 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, interesting.
But yeah,
look for Rosario Dawson hasn't aged at all.
No. She's an Eternal. Don't you know that? Like my friend Kat. She's just an Eternal, And Jeff and Brian are looking good too. So yeah, all this is looking cool. So yeah, look for Clerks 3 in summertime of 2022 or sometime in 2022. I don't fucking know. It'll come when it comes. And that's news unless I missed anything. Oh wait, the big news on the streets. The big news on the streets is that Bradley Haig has finished up another 48-hour film, which you can watch at the Pug Theater.
I do have another piece of news, which I'm sure James has already heard, but shout out to James. The Rocketeer sequel is in development for Disney Plus.
With David Oyelowo. Yeah.
Yep. It will focus on a retired Tuskegee Airman who takes up the mantle.
I like this idea a lot, Miss Corinne. This sounds like fun. Is it going to be a series or a movie? Do we know?
It's a movie.
Huh. Yeah, something that...
called The Return of the Rocketeer.
God, it feels like they should make a TV show out of the Rocketeer 2 at some point. I like the idea of another movie. Maybe they should try to also do a TV show at some point.
I mean, maybe that's in the works down the line. I guess if the movie does well enough.
So we got to make sure this movie is good enough to warrant a TV show.
We'll leave that to James. James, if you're listening, that's your job.
Yeah. And James, since you worked so hard to will this into existence, do me a favor. Start getting into 1994's The Shadow a little bit more than you already are. I know you're a fan of it, but become a bigger fan so that I can get a Shadow reboot. Or maybe don't, and then I can find a way to sneak in and make my own. Who knows? Anyway, that's news. Hey, guys, did you guys know that you don't have to just stream shit? You can also buy physical copies of them and embrace them on a shelf like you're a classy librarian.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yes. Corinne, do you know what these are usually called?
DVDs?
And Blu-rays and 4Ks.
Nah, I think it's just DVDs.
DVD releases and Blu-rays. Well, but whether you think they're just DVDs or not, Corinne, Arrow is going to prove you wrong by putting out a 4K of Dune, David Lynch's 1984 attempt to adapt the unfilmable book. That'll now be filmed by Mr. Denis Villeneuve. So yeah, you can pick up two different versions of it. One is assumedly the more collector edition version, and one is a standard. You will also be able to get Girls' School Screamers from 1985, courtesy of Vinegar Syndrome. The plot is 7 college girls spend the weekend at an elegant estate, which begins as fun-filled adventure but ends in a nightmare of gut-wrenching terror. That's about as vague as a description can get. What's not so vague is Bugsy Malone from 1976 with Jodie Foster and Scott Baio is coming through the Paramount Classics Vault on Blu-ray. So if you'd like to relive the Bugsy memories, check that out. Of a more of a more recent nature, the 2021 musical sensation In the Heights. And I say sensation because I thought it was sensational. You can pick it up on 4K and Blu-ray this week if you so wish. From Kino Lorber, Vincent Price in The Last Man on Earth from 1964. Which you can listen to a breakdown that I did of that on Ballyhoo before you pick it up if you have not seen it before, or just pick up the movie and fucking watch it and don't listen to my bullshit. I think that might be the better option. Although you would miss out on the Poptimistic Boys in that respect. Coraline's getting reissued with a new cover from Leica. Is this? Oh no, this is from Shout Factory. Holy shit! Shout Factory's putting out Coraline. Is this just new covers? Am I crazy here? Or? I don't know.
I think it's new box art.
Yeah, it's pretty standard. It's not. It doesn't look as neat as other box sets for it before, or cover art for it before, but it's all good. Corinne, were you trying to say something?
No.
Oh, okay. Criterion is putting out the 2015 film Beast of No Nations, the Netflix film, the first real theatrical Netflix attempt. Yes. I was correct. Leica's putting out a bunch of their titles with new cover arts because The Box Trolls, arguably one of James's favorite films from 2014, will be coming to you in a new cover edition from Shout Factory. You will also be able to get 1963's The Raven from Kino Lorber with Vincent Price, Peter Lorre, and Boris Karloff. So yeah, this is in the vein of the Roger Corman comedy of terrors kind of vibe. This is when he was working with these aged actors in quick turnaround movies that ended up making a huge profit at the box office by doing more horror anthology that had a bit like comedy. I know for a fact you are also getting the comedy of terrors from 1963 with Price, Lorre, and Karloff as well. So you are getting a slew of horror legends courtesy of Roger Corman before he made Rock and Roll High School his masterpiece. The Brotherhood of Satan from 1971 coming to you through Arrow Video. A family is trapped in a desert town by a cult of senior citizens who recruit the town's children to worship Satan. That sounds a little bit too close to home from the last 4 years. So I'm just going to skip that. But you can also get Spirit Untamed, the movie from 2021. As a newsflash, the horse series is still a thing. Corinne, you're a little bit more in tune with animation of sorts. Is the Spirit franchise lived on this long? Or
I mean, they just got a movie like that Spirit Sophia the First. I don't even remember. They had a movie. It was in theaters.
Well, yeah, I remember Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron with Matt Damon as the horse, but
there's a reason why.
It was just in theaters like 2 months ago.
That's what this is. This release he's talking about.
Okay. Yeah. I just didn't realize they were rebooting the Spirit, the Spirit franchise. I got to know what the new. Lucky Prescott's life is changed forever when she moves from her home in the city to a small frontier town and befriends a wild Mustang named Spirit. I thought the first Spirit took place in the Old West. What the heck? This can't be an eternal horse, can it?
I don't know. I haven't seen the first Spirit in a really long time.
You know what? This is a time where I bring my sister onto Real Nerds podcast to clarify the legacy of the movie that is Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron, because I don't remember it, but I know she does because she loves horses and she loves that movie. Hey guys, the hate you'll love or hate. All they had was a skill for violence and nothing to lose but their lives. 1969's The Devil's Eight, coming to you from Scorpion Releasing, featuring Christopher George, Fabian, Tom Nardini, Leslie Parrish, Ross Hagen. The federal agents infiltrate a prison chain gang and help 6 hardened convicts escape in order to build a team to take down villainous crime bosses. This sounds like a 48-hour movie that I need Brad to make. I would love to see this kind of movie out of you, Brad. Yeah, and that is Blu-rays. Every week, the Real Nerds watch the movie of the week, but they also settle down a little bit and kick back to things that they enjoy, things that give them comfort, things that things that just make their spirits soar or totally sink, depending on what happens. And this is a segment that we call What We've Been Watching.
So, this is the stuff we've been watching.
All right, I'm going to start with Brad. Brad, have you even watched a thing this week apart from yourself getting sleepy?
I did. I watched Ted Lasso, the newest Ted Lasso. And
me too.
Great. Yeah, Corinne and I both watched it. Oops, sorry. Yeah, we watched it and it was great. It really felt like the series turned a corner and started to tackle some more interesting stuff. Not that the show has been bad, it's just it wasn't as progressing as quickly as the last season. So if you have been strangely disappointed, definitely check out this recent episode, because it finally kind of puts the focus back on Ted and not all the other characters.
So what I've been meaning to ask, not out of the same temor that our blacklist discussions take. What is the exact appeal of Ted Lasso? I hear so much about it, but I don't think I get a quantifiable answer as to its brilliance, other than it's just brilliant.
It's really well written. It just has a lot of like great, memorable characters. All the performances are fantastic, and it's just like a very hopeful and upbeat show. The Ted Lasso character, Jason Sudeikis' character, he's very much about building up other people and just helping them to be the best versions of themselves. And he tells a character in season 1, he's like, it's not about the wins and losses for me. The real job, like the real goal of coaching, is about helping these other people. And, I think like that, especially nowadays, like that's just so nice to see. And like, yeah, it's almost like free therapy just watching it. I don't know. Well, Brad, what do you think?
Yeah, it's refreshing to see a show that relies on positivity and not like, hey, here's a character and they've got a dark side, or they're secretly a piece of shit. It's just about like good old fashioned positivity and enthusiasm. Like just like he walks into this negative environment and just like through his sheer will and general niceness transforms all these people by the end of the season. And it doesn't feel contrived. It all feels like natural, like he naturally just wins them over. So yeah, it's great to see a positive show in this day and age, because so many shows are just inspired by that HBO renaissance, from the early 2000s. Like all the premium content we have now has the same formula. Like I said before, hey, here's Don Draper. He's a pretty cool guy. By the episode, oh yeah, he cheats on his wife and he's a piece of shit.
Oh no, he's not actually Don Draper. Oh no.
Yeah. Oh, guess what? He's also like he's not really Don Draper, and he's got a completely alternate identity and secret life, and it's like really just sad, negative reinforcement of society.
The only one that initially subverts it, to my mind, in recent memory, was Breaking Bad, because it starts off with, oh no, it's a goofy chemistry character who's going to cook meth to raise money for cancer. And then all of a sudden, no, he becomes the darkest element in the world. Like
that was by design. So it's like,
oh yeah,
from the get go, they were like, hey, let's turn this totally, like, let's do a show about creating a villain out of a nice guy.
Yeah. And that's it's one of the reasons why it's genius. But this does make Ted Lasso sound very appealing to me. I just kind of like hearing the general vibe that it's just a very positive show. I got the same thing from Anthony Cuba on Poptimistic, so I'm kind of like, I think I've got a good primer to watch this show and not be disappointed. So
it's also great to see just how far the characters have come. Like, we're only a season and a half in, and if you look at back where they were, in the pilot episode or at the beginning of season 1, it's amazing to see like how much progress, even like arguably like background characters have made. Like people who, you kind of vaguely knew who they were, in season 1, and now they've come to the forefront in season 2, and you're like, oh yeah, like they're amazing. Like, yeah, it's so fun to see like their journey, and the fact that like Ted comes in and he kind of starts everybody on their journey, while also going on his own. Anyway, I'll talk about it when we get to me, but yeah, it's been a little, I think it was just not what people were expecting from season 2, but now with this most recent episode, it's just kind of like changed the game, as it were.
Yeah. And also, if like we used to watch the league and people would be like, oh, I don't watch the league because I'm not into fantasy football, but that's just the backdrop. So if you're like, oh, Ted Lasso, it's about European football, or I guess world football. It doesn't matter. Like there's barely any of the game in it. It's just about the people behind it. And like Corinne said, there's characters that I just felt like were, players on the team that would just be background, and a lot of them have turned into main characters on the show. So it's pretty good. It's pretty refreshing to see.
Lovely. Did you watch anything else, Brad, this week?
One more thing, I just remembered as I watched Cliffhanger, the Sylvester Stallone rock climbing movie?
Question mark.
Yeah, wow, that was a blockbuster back then. It is wild. John Lithgow is so arch in that between his weird accent and his super villainy and the team he's assembled, and from the get-go. So Cliffhanger is about I forget Stallone's character's name. It doesn't really matter. Michael Rooker is his best climbing buddy, and he injures himself climbing with his girlfriend, and they have to be rescued. And during the rescue, Sylvester Stallone fails and saves Rooker, but Rooker's girlfriend dies in the process, and it breaks him. So he stops rock climbing, and a year goes by, and he abandons his own girlfriend and decides to move on with his life and do other things. And as he comes back to collect his stuff from his former life, some guy who works for the Mint or the FBI, I don't know, there's some government structure where there's a guy on the inside who's stealing from the Denver Mint, and they orchestrate a heist, and they try to do the heist Dark Knight Rises in the air Nolan style, and it doesn't go as planned, and the three cases that hold the special money that they stole falls into the Rocky Mountains. Even though they fall at the same time, they land in three vastly disparate places. So throughout the movie, it takes the criminals hours and hours to track it down, even though they all have like tracking sensors in them. They still fell miles apart somehow. So the bad guys enlist Michael Rooker initially to help them navigate the treacherous wilderness, despite they got the tracker, and then Sylvester Stallone gets roped into it too, and has to save his buddy's life and foil the plans. And it's silly, it's insane, it's everything an action movie from the 90s is. And there's like a great transition from a real life shooting location to the finale on a soundstage when Michael Rooker pulls one of the guys underwater, breaks out of the ice and pulls him underwater. Like there's this drawbridge in the Rocky Mountains. And there's like the finale where the helicopter falls and gets lodged in a crevice in the mountains. There's this huge wide shot where you blatantly see the harnesses keeping it from falling off the mountain. It's pretty funny. But yeah, the dialogue's cheesy, and
Brad, I feel like I watched one of those like insider videos where they bring in like an expert in a certain field and have them go through different movie scenes about whatever it is. And I think they had like a rock climbing expert review some scenes from this movie, and he's like, yeah, that's not.
Yeah.
I don't remember everything he said, but I feel like he was not so kind to it. Also, didn't they film in the Alps?
Yeah, it feels like there's like several different mountain locations that are pieced together. It doesn't feel like one natural wilderness. But Rennie Harlan directed it, and it definitely feels like, hey, you did Die Hard too. Can you do Die Hard with rock climbing? So yeah, that's pretty much what it is. I watched Speed, and that's Die Hard on a train, or Die Hard on a bus. And now Die Hard on us climbing a mountain. there's even barely rock climbing in it. Like, I don't rock climb, so I don't know all the lingo and technique, but it doesn't feel like this movie did a lot of research on that. So it definitely feels like the Cliff Notes version of rock climbing.
Technically, the Iger sanction with directed by Clint Eastwood has more to do with mountain climbing than Cliffhanger has to do with mountain climbing.
Oh, that reminds me, in that opening where Rooker's girlfriend dies, they get rescued by a helicopter, and they have to, for some reason, he busted his knee, and they're trapped on like a really narrow spire. So the helicopter has to come in and drop the harness or the wire down to him and connect. And then it just like veers off to the right to like a higher altitude. And like, shouldn't just go lower so they can, not pull themselves up into it? Can't like it go down so they can just slide down into it? Why are they making this harder than it has to be? And I don't buy for a second that just jamming a needle into a rock face holds the other end of it in place. So, but she ultimately dies because her harness comes loose. And it's just like, this is so contrived. Like, I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, that's what I watched this week.
Wonderful. Corinne?
Yeah, so jumping off of Brad, talking about Ted Lasso. So a lot of people online have been saying like, oh, is Ted Lasso in a sophomore slump because it was focusing on other characters, not so much on Ted, or the writing didn't feel as crisp and the jokes weren't as funny, or I think Brad maybe brought up before, but just like, characters would get like a lot of development, but then it wouldn't really like get brought up again. And like it just all of a sudden, like, this character did like a 180 and like overnight or something. But I don't know why people are all of a sudden just like, oh, Ted Lasso, it's like bad for some reason. And I've also like theorized like, well, maybe now because so many people binge watch the first season now, watching it week to week, you don't think it's as good. But in actuality, it's just fine. It's just as good as the first season, I think. But anyway, I found an article online after this last week's episode about some guy was like theorizing that it's not heading the way you think. It's heading toward a breakdown, and they were saying that because of certain things that Ted went through in season 1. He's actually having like a little bit of a mental crisis. And so he's trying to push through that by basically playing, like he's acting like himself. Like he's almost like putting on the character of himself to get through these situations. And that's why they were explaining, like, that's why some of the dialogue feels a little forced. That's why his jokes aren't as funny. Like he just comes across as like he's trying too hard to almost be like himself. And again, it was written before this last week's episode. And then in this week's episode, we found out that's exactly what happened, because we don't know exactly the full story yet, but something about a certain situation just caused Ted to just like leave. And he had basically a panic attack. And, he has to have this nice, come to Jesus moment with the sports psychologist that they brought in at the beginning of the season. And, that we were all like, oh, they're going to have to sit down and have a session. Well, here it is. That's going to be in next week's episode. So yeah, I'm very, very excited to see where it goes from here.
Wonderful. What else did you watch?
So the other two things I'll talk about, both weirdly are both Chinese. I did not plan that. The first is a movie I watched yesterday. It's called The Yin Yang Master. It's on Netflix, and it is a movie that was made in China, but they have English subtitles, and they also have English audio if you want to hear it dubbed over. And the premise is that, so they call it the Yin Yang Bureau, and it's basically like these people who can use magic to like fight off demons and stuff, monsters. And there's a person within the Yin Yang Bureau, and they think he like betrayed them, but he didn't actually betray them, or did he? And he's like actually a half demon. So they think like, oh, because of his demon blood, like he's evil. and he ends up leaving, and then it picks up like 7 years later, and he's been living in the forest with these demons, and this great evil demon that was supposedly destroyed, whatever, like thousands of years ago, is starting to make a comeback. So he feels like it's his responsibility to like stop this evil demon. And anyway, so it's just like a whole bunch of drama. And it's here's how I would describe it. It is too good to be campy, but it's also too campy to be good. Like, it is just so weird. Because there are a couple of sequences where I was like, oh my gosh, this is like really, really well done. There's a sequence, maybe like 40 or 50 minutes in, where they're in the demon world. And his former love interest, friend, lady shows up, and they have this fight with like illusions, and it's like really, really well done. I was like, oh, this is so cool. But then at the end of the movie, it basically turns into a Dragon Ball Z fight, but live action, and it looks really stupid. But I don't, and then like, so the main character, his name is Ching Ming, I think, if I remember it correctly. And when you first meet him, he reminded me of that Bart Simpson meme where he's like, he's such a bitch. Like, this guy is such, like, he's a bastard and he loves it. Like, he's just like over here just like whipping out the fan and just fanning himself while he's like robbing this guy. And he's like, I don't give a shit about you. And I'm like, oh, yes, I love it. Love this attitude. And then like later in the movie, he just suddenly becomes like a good guy. Like, he's basically Robin Hood or something. I'm like, what the hell? Like, I thought he was like this bitch and he loved it. But anyway, but then at the very end of the movie, he makes an interesting decision. And I was like, that's different than how I thought this was going to end. Like, it's kind of a happy ending, but like, the casualties were less than they might have been, but like there's still like some drama there. And I don't know if I would necessarily recommend it to people, but I do kind of want to watch it with some friends of mine just so they can see just how weird it is, and we can all like roast it together, but also like enjoy those parts of the movies that are really, really good. So it's interesting. The Yin Yang Master, it's on Netflix. There's also another movie called the Yin Yang Master, the Jade Dream or something. I forget the exact title. It's a similar title. They're not, I don't know exactly how it worked out. They're not like a sequel or anything. It's like two completely different stories, but it has like similar premises and similar characters, but it's a completely different thing. Because I guess the one I watched is based on a video game and the other one's based on a book or something. I don't know. I do kind of want to watch the other one, though, just to see exactly what the differences are. But anyway, the Yin Yang Master, it's on Netflix. And then the other thing I've been watching is also on Netflix. I have to double check the title, but it's a show. It's kind of like anime. Like, it looks a lot like anime, but it's Chinese, so it's technically not. But I believe it is called The Daily Life of the Immortal King. Yeah, The Daily Life of the Immortal King. And yeah, it sounds really cool. But the premise is that he's probably like high school age. This boy goes to a school where everybody's training to, like, they're training their spiritual power to like fight demons and things. And he is secretly like the most powerful being on the planet, probably. Like, because when he was 6 years old, he defeated this like monster that was wrecking the city, that even the most trained warriors were just like getting their asses handed to them. And he just walks up and he's like, oh no, you spilled my food on the ground. And then he just like punches it and it goes flying. And everybody's like, what the hell? So anyway, so he goes to school, and, there's some shenanigans with like his classmates, and he's trying to like keep his actual power level like under wraps, but everybody keeps like messing up, so he keeps having to help them. It kind of reminds me, I talked probably a year ago now about the anime called Psyche K. I can't remember the full title, but
I think that is.
Yeah, so there's an anime. It's kind of similar where it's just like this boy and he has psychic powers and he's like secretly the most powerful being on the planet. And he keeps trying to like use his powers to help everybody, but he can't let them know that he's that powerful. So again, it kind of reminded me a lot of that. But anyway, this Immortal Life, or the daily life of the Immortal King, is also supposed to be based on like a book or a Chinese legend or something. So it's okay. The episodes are pretty short. They're like 15 minutes long, so that makes it kind of nice, but it's just something different. So anyway, that's what I've been watching.
Wonderful. Well, I wasn't here last week, so buckle up for a fun old watch list, boys and girls. After our review of Free Guy, I went through Breakfast at Tiffany's twice for the eventual recording of our episode. And the movie's obviously got its issues with Mickey Rooney's portrayal, and get some hard questions in the ballyhoo talking about how that portrayal is perceived, and specifically by the Asian American community and the Asian community at large, and also talking about how, like, if that character wasn't in that role of a Japanese landlord, what other stereotype would they have replaced it with? So there was a lot of tough questions we had to suss through. But I will say that Breakfast at Tiffany's is it's still an interesting movie to watch, considering how innovative it is from certain character tropes between Holly Golightly and Peter, and those are dove into pretty deeply on the episode. So, Corinne, have you seen Breakfast at Tiffany's?
I have. It's been a couple of years, but
I don't know.
It's not one of my favorite movies of hers, but I have seen it. I mean, I think she's good in it, but it's not my favorite. Okay,
because I was curious if it was like for a beloved one for you, because I know there's a lot of love for this movie. There's a lot of love for this movie. But the statement always comes up. Every person I know who says they love this movie is just like, except for Mickey Rooney. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much how I feel, except for Mickey Rooney. Everything in the movie is pretty fun to watch, even with historical context in mind. But yeah, no. So look for that episode eventually here. Got a bunch of fun ones coming up. I'm skipping ahead though. This coming week, you guys are going to be hearing the voices of Lloyd Kaufman and Zach Vines as we talk about Golden Age Hollywood in general and how it inspired him and his career at Troma. But anyway, after that, though, I needed to turn my brain off. And so I watched a movie called Look Who's Laughing from 1941. I had seen it before, but I was not really paying attention. I think I was kind of checking off boxes in radio adaptations from the 40s of famous comedians. This one has Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy on it, and I've talked about their film career before as I've been rediscovering their film career. There's a lot more disappointments than successes. This is one of their successes. It also features Jim and Marion Jordan playing Fibber McGee and Molly. For the Real Nerds audience who don't really know Fibber McGee and Molly, it's the concept of Fibber McGee is that he's a guy who tells tall tales and is a braggart, and he is married to his long-suffering but sweet-natured wife Molly, and they have misadventures with the different residents of 79 Wistful Vista, which consist of the old timer, a little girl that Marion Jordan does the voice of, and the Great Gildersleeve. Yes. The Great Gildersleeve is in this movie too. The basic plot of the movie is that Fibber McGee is trying to get a airplane factory built in Westville Vista and not in another location, and he's fighting Gildersleeve over this battle to get the plane plant built there, and Edgar Bergen flying to a vacation elsewhere with Charlie McCarthy. He and Charlie McCarthy, by the way, are flying the plane, because you understand Edgar Bergen is not only a skilled pilot, but so is Charlie McCarthy, because the dummy is real, guys. But they land in Wistful Vista, and they just kind of have some misadventures through Wistful Vista with this loose plot about the airplane factory. It does actually feel like a very legitimate Fibber McGee and Molly episode with Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy as guest stars, even though the billing suggests that Bergen and McCarthy are the actual like heroes of the movie. And I'm like, I think it's kind of like an even keeled thing. And you also have early Lucille Ball before she's Lucille Ball that we know and love today, playing very much a love interest for Bergen. You get some wonderful Charlie McCarthy moments in here where you really do remember like how magical it must have been for somebody like Jim Henson to watch that and go like, man, you can make these things feel real. Like, it's crazy. So that was fun to go through. I actually rewatched it twice because I was just like, I just am loving the wholesome nature of Fibber McGee and Molly at the moment. And then I was pointed to by Attaboy Clarence, a John Huston written movie that I had not had on my radar called Three Strangers from 1946. And this is a movie that John Huston wrote with Howard Koch, eventually touching it up for direction by another director. Stars Peter Lorre, Sidney Greenstreet, and Geraldine Fitzgerald as three strangers who all go into a room at the behest of Geraldine, and they make a wish that they all agree upon and put it inside of this Chinese idol. And then at midnight but they have to remain strangers. They can't know each other's names until after the wish has been made at midnight. And they all basically make a wish for a winning sweepstakes ticket to win, so that it would benefit them all. And then the movie, after the wish is made, it breaks off and it goes into their three different desires and how, and also their own criminality traits. So it ends up kind of diverging into, I don't want to say this is Pulp Fiction before Pulp Fiction, but there is an argument to be made about the way the structure of the script plays out in Out of Sequence, that in certain regards that you could see somebody like Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avery looking at this and going like, let's fudge with the timeline a little bit here. But this is Peter Lorre playing a character named Johnny West. And I learned this from Attaboy Clarence after watching the movie, that this role was supposed to be played by other people, amongst which was Errol Flynn. And when he didn't do it, Peter Lorre steps into the role, and they just don't bother to change the name of Peter Lorre's character from Johnny West to something else that befits Peter Lorre more. So you've got Peter Lorre, this Austro-Hungarian immigrant, playing Johnny West. It is a little striking. But he gives one of the best performances in a movie I've ever seen that doesn't require him to be a villain or a henchman or a creepy guy. Like, he is like a genuinely redeemed soul in the movie, and it's like really cool to watch. And I always love whenever Peter Lorre subverts expectation. And Sidney Greenstreet is playing into his bad guy stereotypes, but he's also kind of playing more like a Coen Brothers Fargo-esque kind of thing. Like, he's kind of like a William H. Macy to an extent, because he gets himself into his own jam. And so it is quite fun to look at and watch. And Geraldine Fitzgerald is great too. She's trying to break away from her. She's trying to get back together with her husband, who had already left her because she was playing around. And I think that the movie is like, if Brad, this is actually a movie I'd love to know what you think of it. If you were to sit down and watch it and see how they're structuring it and how everything comes together, it's kind of like an episode of a really interesting anthology TV show to a certain respect, of just like this what if. But you would also I think you would just be intrigued by how much they get away with, because there's a scene where Sidney Greenstreet is about to hang himself, and it's pretty fucking brutal the way they're showing it. Like, it is not of the era. But yeah, so if you haven't seen Three Strangers, check it out. I think Ryan would like it too. Corinne, you might get a kick out of it too. I think it's a movie people can enjoy. And then I rewatched Shock Corridor from 1963. It's a movie I had not seen in a long ass time. It's Samuel Fuller. It's about a gentleman who is trying to investigate a murder inside a mental asylum in the 60s by going in undercover as somebody who is himself insane. His insanity drives from the fact that his story is that he's lusting after his sister, and so they put him away for that. And then slowly but surely, as he's trying to solve these mysteries of who killed somebody in the mental asylum, you see that the different people he talks to represent a different disenfranchised person in society that has been twisted and warped by society's ills to the point where they have become inverted versions of themselves. It's a very controversial film. One of its most controversial elements involves an African American gentleman who, in the asylum, thinks that he is a white supremacist, which sounds a lot like the Clayton Bigsby David Chappelle sketch, but it's treated very sincerely. It's treated in a very frankly shocking way for the era that I was gobsmacked when I first saw it, and watching it now, it plays interestingly. I don't know how well it holds in some regard, but it is a daring performance regardless. So yeah, Shock Corridor. And then I rewatched The Thing from Another World, the original version produced by Howard Hawks, possibly directed by it. It depends on who you're talking to. And it's fine. It's a good movie. It's a good sci-fi movie from the era. The remake of The Thing is better for me in a lot of ways. So I would say that that's the thing to go towards. I rewatched Terror Firmer, the trauma film Lloyd Kaufman directed, where people are trying to make a movie and there's a bunch of murders going on. And it's a very, very aggressively transgressive film that is not for everybody. But if you are into transgressive cinema like that, like a Lloyd Kaufman or a John Waters, it is a very interesting commentary on the film industry as it existed in the 90s. So I would definitely seek it out if that's something that's up your alley. As somebody who can appreciate trauma, maybe I'm not the same super fan that Zach Bynes is or Richard Taylor is, but I do appreciate trauma stuff when I see it, and this is clearly one of their masterpieces. And James Gunn was involved in the co-writing of it, so it's very, very much worth your time if you're looking into digging into that. And then the last thing I rewatched was Love Thy Neighbor from 1940, which is the third in the Mark Sandrich Jack Benny trilogy, and it's a catchy movie in a lot of regards because it's about the Jack Benny Fred Allen feud. It's not as solid as Buck Benny Rides Again to me, but it is also really fun watching Fred Allen act because he doesn't get a lot of movies to act in. So anytime you see him, you're appreciating what he could have offered, but also Fred wasn't really a film actor. And you do also get more Teresa Harris and Eddie Rochester Anderson, which is obviously a big source of why I love those films. And you get Mary Kelly, who was Jack's old girlfriend in vaudeville, playing a maid in the movie. So there's a lot of fun Easter eggs for Benny fans in there. As a movie, it's a little flimsy. It doesn't have the same panache as Buck Benny Rides Again, but it's still a pretty solid Benny entry that it's clear why it was a big box office hit. But there's also a lot of baggage attached to it that would need to be discussed. So if it's something that interests you in the Benny world, it's something that would be up your alley if you can seek it out. And that's all I watched this week. This week on Real Nerds Podcast, we saw Nia DaCosta's Candyman. Corinne, did you even see this movie that I recommended to you?
Nope. Everybody should just go watch that TikTok series of a woman finding a hidden apartment behind her bathroom mirror instead.
All right, Corinne. Brad, should people go watch Candyman 2021?
I don't know if you share my taste in movies, then yeah. I was actually kind of surprised. I only saw the original like 2 years ago at an Esquire Midnight for the first time, and it wasn't blown away by it. It was kind of silly and cheesy, and like the backstory behind Candyman just didn't impress me. But what they do in this movie to tie, I guess there's probably some sequels too. It feels like they definitely use this movie to create a Candyman universe, and I was impressed. Like, I wouldn't go see it because of the kills or anything. Like, that's not the most impressive part. The most impressive part is its actual ties to racial injustice, I guess. I really enjoyed what it did with that. So yeah, it's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Brad. I really liked the movie, but I will go a little bit above and beyond, Brad. The movie does a lot to satisfy me as a fan of the original Candyman, and I appreciate the sequels, but I think that first one's more my bag. But this update and extension of the mythology, I think, is expertly handled. The movie is tense. It has genuine moments of shock, terror, and scare that I think are absolutely poignant and important. But mostly, it is a good horror movie. Like, it is a solid horror movie. It does the job of scaring the shit out of you. Mateen is really good in the movie. I appreciated the way they handled the twist at the end. And we will talk more about that when we get into the spoilers. But yeah, if you are looking for any alleviation of fears of what they're doing to the Candyman franchise, rest assured, Jordan Peele and Neil DaCosta do a wonderful job of getting this thing right. So with that, here's the trailer for Candyman.
This is where it all began. The story of Candyman. Local character, he walk around handing out candy to the neighborhood kids. One day, a couple of kids get razor blades in their candy. Police come around. That's when I saw the true face of fear.
Get on your knees. Hands, hands, hands.
They beat him, tortured him, killed him right there on the spot. A couple weeks later, more razor blades and more candy. He been innocent.
So he's real?
Candyman ain't a he. Candyman's the whole damn hive. If you're out here looking for Candyman, you ask me, stay away.
I feel really connected to this story.
God.
Right here, in this neighborhood, the legend started. And the legend is, if we say his name 5 times while looking in the mirror, we could summon him.
Summon the Candyman.
Hell no.
Candyman.
Anthony, no.
Candyman.
Stop.
I don't want to get creeped out in my new apartment before bed.
Candyman.
Black people don't need to be summoning.
I dare you.
Don't say that.
Say his name.
Candyman.
You better not do that last one.
Candyman. You want to be a part of the story, right?
No.
Say his name. Candyman.
Anthony? 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 Are you okay?
Anthony.
What the hell is going on? Anthony!
This neighborhood is haunted.
I think I made a mistake. I brought him back.
Candyman isn't real!
He chose you. He has purpose for you.
Tell everyone. New to the neighborhood.
You should say it.
Candyman!
Say his name.
Candyman picks up years after the original Candyman, but it really begins in 1977, following the exploits of a gentleman who is hiding in the walls of the projects of God, my brain is
Cabrini Green.
Cabrini Green, yeah. Cabrini Green, sorry guys, who is offering candy to children, and it has been reported that he has been offering children candy filled with razor blades. He comes out and offers to him. We hear a scream, and then it cuts to modern day where we have the Mateen character, Anthony, and his girlfriend living in an apartment. And he's looking for a new art project to give to an art installation. And he stumbles across the legend of Candyman when his girlfriend's brother tells the story of Helen Lyle from the first movie. In this movie, it seems that the legend has become, from Candyman 1, that Helen Lyle was the killer and that Candyman is not involved. But then they're aware of Candyman. So it's almost like the legend has been purported that Helen Lyle was just a crazy woman that committed these murders. And so the movie ends up becoming really like, it's almost like a soft reboot of Candyman, the first one. because we do go through similar elements of those stories. However, the idea of cultural appropriation of art, racial injustice, and embracing an anti-hero become key in this film. Brad, I was wondering if you could, now that we get in spoiler territory, can you follow up a little bit on why this film kind of worked better for you than maybe the original one?
I forgot to say in the beginning, like there were parts where I was like really tuned out, like they got kind of boring. But the most fascinating part for me was that the original story was that I forget what his name is, but it's like whatever Tony Todd's character was. He was like this Revolutionary War guy, and it's like it was this convoluted story that didn't.
It's Daniel Robitaille.
Daniel Robitaille, like I wasn't sure why he was called the Candyman, and like why did it have to be from the Revolutionary War. But this movie kind of sets up that there are generations of Candyman, and they're all tied to the white supremacy. Like has created all these monsters from their like the injustices that they put upon them throughout time, and so Anthony is like the latest creation. Like he's the latest in the lineage. So they're like it's a sequel, but it's also a reboot.
It's and something that's when you're saying that it's expanding into, they call it the Hive, and it consists of folks like the William Burke is the Candyman, that the Candyman proxy that we see at the beginning, because he's got an actual, like he's disfigured and he's got one of those medical hooks, hook hands, and you also have actual figures of racial injustice like George Stinney and James Byrd Jr. Being alluded to as people who have carried on the Candyman mythos, but they do establish that Daniel Robitaille is the first.
And
Candyman.
Emmett Till was portrayed in one of the coolest parts is like the storytelling. The flashbacks are done by like these like dark 2-dimensional puppets, like silhouettes on a wall, but they're or marionettes, I guess is better.
Shadow puppet, like I guess like shadow puppets. Yeah.
Which are really cool and creepy. But yeah, Emmett Till is one of them. So yeah, it just ties like all these historical references too into like this urban legend. But the silly parts for me were like the guy who knows the most about that story is trying to recreate it, and he just like goes from like it just seems like he's a normal guy to it's completely off his rocker, which is got like a huge 180. It's weird. And then the girls in the high school who do it just seems like that's a scene you could probably cut and the movie would still feel more cohesive. It's just like it almost like a producer said, like, hey, we need more violent stuff in this movie, or more scares. Can you just add a scene to it?
You talking about the school scene?
Yeah, the girls in the bathroom.
So I was in your boat, Brad, until after watching the movie. I talked a little bit with Jack Hanley, and he gave me something that turned my brain around on that pretty quick, which was that the idea of, well, number one, there is the idea that these obviously these girls disassociated from the problems of inner city gentrification and being put through a system that doesn't treat them correctly. Like they are just they have no respect for any form of the fear that comes through that curse. But also, there is that element of cultural appropriation. Like they're taking on the mythos for themselves, and they pay the price in that bathroom in that regard. There is that element of cultural appropriation that counterbalances what's going on in the main plot. It does seem a little disjointed, but I guess thematically I enjoy it. But I understand what you're saying, that it's like
it's not bad. It just seems a little extra, like
it
realistically,
like
if you think about it, yeah, realistically when you think about it, like you just up your body count to like a very public setting, and so it's like how the movie can't be intimate anymore. Like the legend is like reaching many more people, so it. In the real life, it would probably become like national news at that point, and like no one would think that the legend is fake anymore.
Right. Well, and it's interesting how the how the mythos of Candyman to me has always played out, where it was kind of like insular, and it always feels like the outside world up to a certain point in this movie, especially, is almost kind of like isolated from it, and it's just considered regular murder, which is kind of like this, like this interesting way of how like important stories about people's murders are swept under the rug. But like I do think that like there is something about the juxtaposition that makes it interesting to still have it in the movie. But I totally get what you're saying. I will say that there is if I had one complaint about the movie, apart from Tony Todd not coming on screen for more than 30 seconds just to say hi to me, because I would love to just say hi to Tony Todd and be like, hey, I hope you're doing okay.
De-aged Tony Todd, CGI Tony Todd.
Yeah. But there is this element of the Burke character, and I misremembered it. Sherman Fields is the one that is the hooked man at the beginning. William Burke is the character that Coleman Domingo plays. And his character is scarred by the idea of Candyman. And I guess we can get into the big twist of this movie. So Mateen goes through the Candyman experiences that Helen Lyle has dealt with, and in the first movie, but from a different vantage point and perspective. And people around him are dying. He is slowly transforming, though. And there is a revelation that he was actually the baby that Helen Lyle saved and gave to a woman in the first Candyman, which is actually very important. Now, I'm Brad, since you'd only seen the first one not too long ago, and I can't remember. Did you say you didn't really remember much of the first Candyman going into this one?
Not much of like the bulk of the movie, but I do remember Virginia Madsen like taking that whole bonfire at the end. I do remember. Yeah. So she I forgot that she died though.
Oh yeah. She actually, at the end of the original one, she becomes her own version of the Candyman, going after her, the lover that scorned her. But Mateen is established to be the child, and there's established a mythos that Robitaille was obsessed with this child in the first one, and the connective tissue for that is that he is wanting to pass on the legacy, and this is what William Burke believes. And so basically there is a disconnect where Mateen goes to confront Burke, and he's basically entranced by the Candyman spirit. And Burke is using this to basically mutilate Mateen to create the new Candyman. And Burke's reasonings for it are interesting, and they carry off in the most ballsiest move that a franchise has made at all in the last couple of years. Any franchise, doesn't matter. It's a ballsy move. Difference between exciting and shocking and actually being ballsy. But Burke's reasoning is to create a protector in the form of Candyman for the community that has been gentrified and forgotten and tossed aside. And I think that's a really interesting move for a horror franchise to make, to actively make your traditional villain character a full-on, we're labeling it anti-hero.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was before I even go into my spiel, Brad, how'd you feel about it?
I was kind of cool with it. Like, I mean, the police are kind of portrayed in a stereotypical way, so it's easy to accomplish that in a stereotypical negative way. So I can't wait to hear Ryan's thoughts on this.
But did give it a 5-star on Letterboxd, I saw. So
okay, cool. Well, yeah, I think, like I said, I think I'm most impressed by the fact that it is like a sequel, a reboot, and a remake all in one movie, and it is a interesting way to generate like a new franchise, like rebuild the franchise, like in a sort of anti-hero sort of way. Like, I don't know. I'm just fine with it. Like I said, I'm not like a huge fan of the originals, so this feels like a clean slate for me. So I'm like, okay, if this was the first one I saw, like I'd be like, cool.
Well, and that, so like I'll tell you, like I'm in your boat that I agree. I agree with the decision, and I love the decision. That's why I say it's the ballsiest decision that's been made for a franchise in years. It took me aback at first because when the police shoot him, it was an unnerving image to watch in a theater. But then so they arrest her and they put her in the back of the cop car, and they're trying to get her to tell to go along with the police side of the story, which obviously we are talking into the more recent accountability toward police officers in the in this film, and she basically agrees to it only if she can look in the mirror, and he adjusts the rear view mirror, and she does the Candyman, and from inside the car we watch a very, very intense sequence where Candyman has been reborn.
I guess I'm more interested to watch who it pisses off.
I haven't heard a lot of throwback online. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you've seen anything, but I have not read a peep. I've heard people wondering if this fudges with the mythology of Candyman more than anything else. And like, I would say it doesn't. I think it expands the mythology reasonably, because the Tony Todd Candyman is a story that, as purposed by the original story by Clive Barker, works on its own merit. But if you are going to continue this franchise and you do want to be relevant to what Bernard Rose took from that original Barker story and putting into this new one, it makes sense to address it this way. And what's more, it makes sense to address it to the fact that you have to take it down this angle. And it is into that form of an anti-hero for the community. Like the line, they never say the line, the classic line from Candyman, "Be my victim." In this one, like Todd's big line is "Tell everyone." Like, it's chilling. It's very chilling to watch. And go ahead.
I just think it's cool that they transformed it into, instead of like this kind of arbitrary, smaller like story between a couple people, into this lineage of there's like the word like revenge guys, this like a lineage of guys seeking revenge for racial injustice. And not because like, I mean, it's not always because of that, but like the Candyman is not. It's more of like this aloofness towards like this legend, that they're not being taken seriously, and that's kind of what like talking to the mirror 5 times and treating it as a joke draws them out as. So it's like, we're not here to amuse you with your little game. We're, if you're gonna take our history and then laugh at it, he's gonna come for you.
Yeah, laugh at it or appropriate it the way the girls do in the school, or even the way the artists do, and the way they're treating the art at a certain point, and like, appropriating that pain. And I think that, I mean, being that this is a horror movie, I think it would be important to talk about the kills. I think the first kill in the art gallery is very creative with how it plays around with the camera and the splitting of that screen with the hook. And it does the same things where it's, Candyman in the mirror only, but otherwise it looks like a ghost. And
I don't remember Tony Todd's one, him being like killing people like invisibly. Am I just wrong on that?
I need to rewatch it, but I remember them they're more implying through the mirror and through when it's not seen through a mirror. It's something kind of being held up in a ghost-like fashion or compelling Helen Lyle. So I am sorry if I'm misremembering, but I need to rewatch the first one to remember the visual schematics. But
I always thought he like appeared in the mirror and then he would appear in the real world after that. But I thought it was cool in this movie where like people are being tossed around, like the Invisible Man is there, and it's pretty haunting.
Yeah. And then also, which by the way, there's a Hitchcockian kind of shot here from the exterior of the critic's window. When the critic, after he leaves the critic's apartment, and then she just, you cut to this exterior from outside of the building, and she's then lifted up and she's just tossed around the room and slid across as she's bleeding. Like, it's chilling. It's chilling from a distance. It's like DaCosta's really good at not laying into the gore unless she has to. Like, unless she's like, the most brutal scene in the movie, apart from the girl in the first kill getting that hook through the throat, really is Anthony's hand being cut off to then put on the Candyman hook. And then, of course, obviously the climactic sequence.
There's also that cool shot in the mirror when like Anthony is like drawing and he's dialed into sort of like something's possessing him. And then the bee comes on the mirror, and then it turns out the bee's on the other side of the mirror. Like,
yeah.
A cool reveal.
Yeah, and that's clearly like a sound. That's like a sound trick there. That's a sound trick. Which, by the way, also, it was cool to be thrown back into the world of Candyman by having the opening title credits from a mirror's perspective.
Oh yeah, the like low angle drive through Chicago's like skyscrapers.
Oh,
like,
I also meant the studio. I also meant the studio logos themselves being backwards.
I was worried. I was like, did they project it backwards for a second? Like, because all of them are doing it. But then I realized it was the mirror gag. So
yeah, no, it's. I think it was a nice, clever way to get people in. Like, you know, the studios are fully aware. Look, they're here for Candyman. They don't give a shit about Universal and MGM.
Yeah.
Like the reason that I knew it was a gag ultimately was because the monkey paw logo, which I always know comes to the right, comes to the left side. On the right side, it comes the other way. So it's pretty darn cool. But yeah, and then the ending shows more of those marionette puppetry images of the different racial injustice done throughout history and the creation of the hive, essentially. And this is a monkey paw production from Jordan Peele's company after Us and after the emergence of violence stemming off of 2020 with George Floyd and everything that resulted from that, but also the different elements of injustice that's been carried on since forever. And the idea of there's an idea that's stemmed to this movie of just like, you know, we've it's a way of addressing, Candyman is a way of addressing what has gone on forever, and that's what Nia DaCosta's been able to turn it into, which is I think it's a good compliment to what Bernard Rose set out to do with the first Candyman, with drawing attention to the issue. Regardless of how dated it might be, it's still an effective horror movie for a lot of reasons, and I think DaCosta taps into those expertly. I don't think I've seen a movie by her apart from this, but I want to see more from her. She's really got a good angle on it, and she scared the shit out of me with a lot of sequences in this film. So yeah. Any other thoughts on Candyman? Corinne, have we convinced you to watch Candyman? Come on.
Nope.
Come on. Come on. Please.
I heard something about a hand getting cut off, so I'm out.
Okay, fair enough. Brad, what do we want to see next week?
I believe we're watching Shang-Chi, so that's a no-brainer.
Shang-Chi, Marvel, MCU, which means we got to get Ryan back in the hosting chair. You can't have me hosting a Marvel episode. No stretch at all in that. No.
And I believe shortly after that, we're doing Filmsplosion 2001. So get your list to us.
Exactly. Send your list for Filmsplosion 2001 by no later than September 10th. We will be recording that show at some point. And I guess I can make some announcements here. I will be guest hosting another podcast in the coming weeks. I don't know how much I can reveal. I can tell you that is with people that I've podcasted before in the Yesteryear Ballyhoo community and the Shamley community. So look out for that. You'll be hearing me on 3 different shows starting in mid-September. Ballyhoo, Real Nerds, and this one. And also, by the way, I wasn't here to talk about it in full, but the Leather Brown screening went over really well. And Bradley, you got to watch it and you got to see me come back to EFP. It was a lot of fun. Thank you very much for taking those lovely photographs of me that reminded me I'm not a failure. So
yeah, you got lucky. You got a super extended Q&A, man.
I'm shocked by that. That still fucking shocks me. That shouldn't be happening. Like, other people made just as good movies, and sometimes, to my mind, some better movies. But yeah, no, it was very fun. I really appreciated it. So thank you to all who attended. I really appreciate it.
I gotta say, Zach, I was riding in the car while we were on the 48-hour shoot with the Ryans. For the listeners at home, I'm not talking about Ryan Frost, but other Ryans. Very popular name, apparently. And I don't think they knew that I knew you. So they were like talking about the screening, and they were like, oh yeah, Zach Eastman, like that was a pretty good movie. He's like really talented and all this. And I'm just sitting back there like, good thing they're saying nice stuff about him, or otherwise this would be an awkward car ride.
No, Corinne, that's when you jump in and go like, oh yeah, well, he's an asshole.
So sounds like it was a very impressive screening.
It was, but now, Corinne, now I'm just thinking about like all the things you could have said in the car. Just be like, oh yeah, well, he hasn't even seen the Blacklist. And then just turn around.
Man, we managed to drop that show 3 times on the podcast today. Suck it, Ryan.
I'm getting it out there right now. I do think that, in all sincerity, if you haven't watched the Blacklist, it sounds like you made the right choice.
Yeah, you totally did. Side note, Brad, I don't think that season 8 is going to be on Netflix anytime soon. So we probably won't be talking about it again in a while.
Will you guys stop talking about the fucking Blacklist?
Okay.
I can hear Ryan yelling from here.
Yeah, that's right, Corinne. Go Spider-Man.
That is definitely not what he sounds like.
That is, I know it's not. This is what he sounds like. Hey, darlings, tune into the Real Nerds podcast. Oh, well.
Sure.
Yeah, no, that was my cheap Cary Grant impression. Blech.
I want to see a movie now called Cherry Grant. And
is it a Pixar movie?
And we just replace all the footage of Cary Grant with a giant cherry.
Can it be a giant cherry doing that shot in To Catch a Thief where he does the look at me expression? But
I'm just excited to watch a giant cherry just run and then like fall over in the middle of like a cornfield or whatever,
and then run away from
Northwest,
and then run away from a gas tank exploding in the middle of that cornfield, and and the cherry lifting up the woman and saying, "Come in here, Mrs. Thornhill."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it looks like we lost Brad. Oh no, did we lose people?
Poor Brad. He was just so annoyed by all of our Cherry Grant talk.
Oh no, Ryan texted me. I hear my name, be my victim. Oh no. Spider-Man.
He's coming for you, Zach.
The Spider-Man. Brad, you traitor. All right, we'll get out of here, folks. Have a lovely evening. And until next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Real Nerds Podcast. Real Nerds Podcast is a production of Nebulous Visions Multimedia. Thank you to Sparks Mandrill and Plan 9 Studios for our kick-ass theme song. Also, if you're in the Denver area and you're looking for a cool place to see movies, we see them at the Alamo Drafthouse in Littleton and now also in Sloan's Lake. Thank you to Colorado Coins, Cards, and Comics for supplying us with all our comic needs, especially you, Andrew. You know who you are. And a big shout out to James's mom. I'm giving you an electronic hug that you can feel through the airwaves. Thanks for listening, and have a nice day.